In the 1990s, starting in middle of September 95, was a time in wrestling history where you got to hear one of two music to start your night off with as a fan. Here's what you first heard, and this started in 1993. On the other hand, you had another song that you could listen to in the city and state known as Atlanta, Georgia. And this is gonna take a while, but I know you can listen to the first theme of this. And here is their music. I'm gonna have to wait for me to skip this, and here it goes. Sorry about the quality. For some reason, they don't have a clear reception for the first ever Nitro music. So, sorry you can't hear that, but I can play one of the themes, and the reason these themes are important is because of what it represents. The option between if you wanted to watch WCW or if you wanted to watch WWF. Here's Monday Nitro theme. that we heard enough of that. The name of this show is Daniel Vaillan's WWE Network Review. And the first series I want to talk, the reason I choose the first wrestling TV show or series topic that I choose to talk about is Nitro versus Raw, is because when I was a kid, we watched more Nitro than Raw. And I decided to talk about this because I would see videos from fan on Twitter showing the comparison of what happened between Raw and Nitro, and to draw inspiration from that, I just decided to compare the two shows. And I want to make sure this time I get it right, so I'm going to have to go to the Monday Night Raw show on the network, on the library section. I'm going to have to go to the Raw library just to see which Raw from 95. believe September 11th was when Nitro started. So let's see. September 11th did have a Raw episode. So I would have to pause this after getting it far enough to where I can know it's on the network, or where I know it's in the continue watching section. I would have to search Nitro to make sure I have it right, but I'm absolutely positive that I'm absolutely positive though, to repeat myself so I can finish my thought, that Raw and Nitro started against each other head to head on September 11th. That I'm positive of. I believe Nitro's brought up in the vault, so I'm gonna look for Nitro in the vault. And to be honest with y'all, in case anybody's wondering why I didn't choose to do a poll on this, is because we always loved Nitro, and I like to be chronological with what I do. So the reason I chose a poll for pay-per-views is because it's pay-per-view, it's not on TV. So because this is Raw versus Nitro and it's weekly, I want to be chronological with it in this series topic. September 11th was 6 days before Paul Brawl 95. And the beginning of Raw was British Bulldog, who had just, not only did he cut his hair after having it long and having it in braids for a few years, but they had him turn heel by assaulting Diesel and having Jim Cornette become his manager. And I believe by this time his brother-in-law Owen Hart was already being managed by Jim Cornette. So it all went together perfectly. So the first match was Razor Ramon versus British Bulldog. Razor Ramon at SummerSlam the month before, he lost his shot at the at regaining the Intercontinental title in a ladder rematch against Shawn Michaels. They called this a rematch for WrestleMania 10. And Dean Douglas was egging him on, so he ended up hitting Dean Douglas because Dean Douglas tried a cheap shot. And when Dean Douglas tapped him to turn him around so he could hit him, he hit him right away. So when the referee was knocked down, he came down. I'd have to take a look at this. But first, let me say what happened. Sabu versus Alex Wright ended with Sabu winning with I think they called it an Arabian Face Buster, but I'm not sure. Alex Wright used to use a German suplex, but because Sabu was brand new and they wanted him to get over in a big way, Sabu ended up kicking out of the German suplex. And, well, what he really won with was actually, I believe, this is what Bret Hart used to call a victory roll, but it was from the top rope. Put your feet over your legs over your opponent's neck. You sit on them, and then you go forward with literally a roll. But it was from the top rope, so it was, even though it was very effective, it didn't look as good as it did when your opponent's standing up. So it looked like Alex Wright just let him win. But either way, it was a great match. He ended up, because he assaulted Alex Wright, putting him on a table and actually trying to slam him through a table. He caused the referee to reverse his decision, and Alex Wright won by disqualification. And then while that happened, like I said, I'm going to have to look back to see exactly what Dean Douglas did, but all I know for sure is Dean Douglas had cost him the match. No, he tried to cost him the match. After Razor hit the Razor's Edge on British Bulldog, the referee was laid out, and I think, the Razor's Edge took as much out of Razor as it did out of Bulldog. But he still tried to get the referee to get up, and he went for the pinfall. But, Dean Douglas came from the top rope, hit him with an elbow. So 1, 2, 3 Kid, after getting draped over, came out, but instead of helping Razor by going after Dean Douglas. Dean Douglas caught him and he draped him over the ropes. So when Bulldog made the cover, he tried to make the save with a frog splash, but he ended up hitting Razor by mistake, so he caused Razor the match. However, what was better with this match than what's better with this match than most matches, or the post-match segment, was better about this than what happened on Nitro, was that there was already an existing storyline with 1-2-3 Kid versus Razor Ramon, so he ended up in the middle of an interview segment. He ended up challenging Razor to a match, and Razor said if the fans wanted it, and if the Kid wanted it, and if Vince wanted it, then he said yes to it. But what was better about Nitro, that instead of having an enhancement talent team go against the tag team champions, which at the time were Stud Stable, known as Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Dick Slater. Instead of doing that, they actually had a U.S. title match between VK Wall Street and Sting, which Sting won with crossbody block, I believe, after hitting two stinger splashes. And he hugged the leg for the pinfall. Now, while that was going on, Raw had the Smoking Guns. I don't even know if they were tag team champions. But what was great about watching Raw was they used to show a preview of what to look forward to in next week's show. And this time, it was Yokozuna and Owen Hart were tag team champions, set to defend the titles against Men on a Mission, and they aired a preview commercial for next week's episode about that. And that was made, of course, by President Gorilla Monsoon. And this was just like their show on Monday Nitro's episode was to help build to WCW Fall Brawl. This was to build toward their toward WWF's next In Your House pay-per-view. So that's what was really interesting about this show, about this pay-per-view, about this episode, excuse me. The Smoking Guns went against the Brooklyn Brawler and Rad Redford. Of course, they won with, trying to remember what they really won with. But it was usually, sidewalk slam, leg drop combination, this time on Brooklyn Brawler. I think because of building to the next pay-per-view, I think Raw won this, the ratings for this show. But I still think Monday Nitro had more interesting storylines and matches. Like after this, Scott Norton went against Randy Savage. Before they went to that match, they were actually announcing the matches for Saturday night, and even though Vince McMahon's company was more organized and a much better wrestling company because they knew the business, WCW Monday Nitro was better at promoting their Saturday show. They had showed that Disco Inferno was going to show up for the first time, and the night before Fall Brawl, the TV champion was going to face his opponent, his next challenger, Diamond Dallas Page. Going to face that challenger's bodyguard, Max Muscle. And also Big Bubba was going to go against Dave Sullivan, who had a rabbit. I forgot the rabbit's name. Brian Pillman would go against Alex Wright. And they said it was at 6:05 Eastern. Yeah, 5:05, 7:35, if I'm not mistaken. And the next match, I remember how this match ended. Earthquake fell over Scott Norton, and that enabled Randy Savage to hit the elbow drop on him for the pinfall victory. 2-3. That was that actually, I think that was to help. That actually helped build to the War Games match itself, because Earthquake was a part of Dungeon of Doom. So while that's happening, let me see what match this was. Dr. Isaac Yankum, DDS against Scott Taylor. He beat Scott Taylor with a DDT that they call DDS. And I really believe, he had just lost to Bret Hart at SummerSlam 95 in a by disqualification, excuse me. But I believe they carried this on few more matches after that. So it's another reason I'm interested in doing this series also. And I will be back here after I do this episode. I will be back on here to record my next pay-per-view episode, but first I have to watch the pay-per-view that I decided to go with after Starrcade. Was the first ever Survivor Series pay-per-view. So let's see. All I really know is that Hulk Hogan went against Lex Luger, the main event. Before I take a look at that, let me take a look at the final match that they had for WWF Raws were right here. Another reason they probably won the ratings, besides there being a title match between Shawn Michaels, the Intercontinental Champion, and his former bodyguard, Sid Vicious, they also had a bunch of merchandise being plugged. That's another reason they probably won the ratings for this night. So Shawn Michaels kept the Intercontinental title after hitting Sid Vicious with, 2 super kicks? Actually, a super kick in the stomach, and then one in the face, and then one in the face again. Um, and what was interesting about this is that what everybody really remembers from the the beginning of the Nitro, or ratings war as we like to call it, what everybody seems to remember from the Monday Night Ratings War is Bischoff giving away results of the show. Well, he didn't do that this night, so it makes it really interesting, even more so. Um, and what even more so made this an interesting match was the build to the next In Your House pay-per-view, which had he himself and his best friend and tag team partner for that night, Diesel, defending their singles titles against the tag team champions who are putting up their tag team titles. So it really makes it interesting. The only thing I really remember from Monday Nitro was what happened after the heavyweight title match. I think a disqualification happened because of the Dungeon of Doom getting involved. So first I want to make sure I got that correct. Hogan hit the foot, big boot and leg drop, yeah. Middle of that, Zodiac came out, Sullivan came out, Mean came out, Kamala came out, and Shark came out. So yes, it ended up where Sting talked them into letting Luger join them because Vader, who was originally supposed to be the fourth man, he went AWOL. So they let him come in or join their team, with the agreement that he would get a title shot against Hogan down the line. And that is the best part of the show, is that they brought a conclusion to who the fourth man will be. Just like they brought a conclusion to who, it's like Rob brought a conclusion to who the Intercontinental Champion was going to be in the main event of their next pay-per-view. Because of the live shows, like for instance Impact on Thursday nights, MLW Fusion and New Japan on Friday nights, and Raw and SmackDown on Monday and Tuesday nights, I'm going to do my because of liking to stay in chronological order, after I finish the poll that I have up on Twitter for my next pay-per-view discussion, I'm going to go back to the original, to 83 and 84 to talk about Starrcade and First Ever Great American Bash and those shows. But what's great is that is that the reason I'm doing these shows is to talk about the first ever shows, first ever pay-per-views of these famous pay-per-view titles. I said I would do Survivor Series, but I gotta be honest. WrestleMania had 3 years before Survivor Series did. So I'm gonna have to talk about the first WrestleMania, the first Great American Bash. Before I even talk about the other ones. So I'll just actually look at the pay-per-view. Ooh, I forgot. What I had forgotten was that when you look at the app on the PlayStation 4, the network, you have to really remember the pay-per-views chronologically, because they don't come up in order like on the laptop or on the iOS app. You gotta have to really be careful. So Starrcade was the first one. I'm gonna have to look. Okay, Starrcade, good. Starrcade was in '83, and then '84 had Starrcade. So I'm going to talk about Starrcade '84. Hold on. So found out about Starrcade '80, since I just realized that I can look at WrestleMania that '84 was possibly the first time they had a WrestleMania. I'm gonna look at all the WrestleManias to know the first. I'm gonna look at all of them to see which one is the first. I'm positive it's '84. Not, it's '85. So I will look at Starrcade '84 if WrestleMania didn't happen before it. Okay, good. Look at it, all the WrestleManias. Okay, it was '85, so the next one will be 1980, will be Starrcade 1984. Then I got back to my poll, and I'll talk about the first ever WrestleMania. And I just, for Daniel Van's use of wrestling, I had just spoken about, I just broke down the main event from Starrcade '84, I believe. Or, no, from 1985, so it's good. I didn't talk about the main event from 1984 because I think Ric Flair chose the match from 1985 put on his first DVD. Okay. This main event at Starrcade 84 was not a quote grudge match. It was not just for the heavyweight title, but also for $1 million. So that's what really made it a big deal. Okay. I don't have to talk about Fall 95. All of it. I can just talk about the matches that influenced Monday Nitro from the next night. Okay. Like in the beginning of Monday Nitro, September 18th, 1995, I rushed ahead, I'm sorry. In the pre-show on WCW's main event show on Sunday night at the time, with help from Dick Slater, who was one half of the World Tag Team Champions, the American Males beat the Nasty Boys, and they were going to go against the Blue Bloods team of members of Blue Bloods, Earl Robert Eaton and Lord Steven Regal. But in the beginning of the match, beginning of the show, right before, right as the Blue Bloods were supposed to come out, they got assaulted in the tunnel by Harlem Heat, who had won tag team titles the night before with help from the Nasty Boys, who got back at Dick Slater by hitting him with his own boot. And also another thing that that ended up influencing this episode of Nitro. The night before, they had in Fall Brawl War Games, the War Games match itself, Hulkamaniacs beat the Dungeon of Doom when Hogan made the Zodiac surrender. And by virtue of the win, Hogan got Kevin Sullivan in the cage for 5 minutes. And about a minute into having him in the ring for a 5-minute match, Giant came out, assaulted him, and ended up turning his head sideways where it looked like he hurt his neck. So that was the first segment before they even had the American Mouse come out to the ring. So that was to build to a bigger deal between the two. Ray said, "My dad would have been proud of what I did." And then the Giant did, that it's not Hulkamania that's the greatest force on earth, it's him. So they went to the ring. Harlem Heat assaulted the Blue Bloods, like I said before, and they decided to put the titles on the line to show that they're not afraid to defend the titles against anybody. The middle of their title match the night before, the middle of them regaining the tag team titles, Sherry and Parker decided to solidify how they feel about each other. They kissed each other. And so when Booker T needed Sherry to hit Marcus Bagwell with the shoe, out came Parker, and she paid more attention to Parker. So they ended up losing the titles. While that happened, Dean Douglas helped 1-2-3 Kid beat Razor Ramon, not for the kid's sake, but for the sake of egging on Razor Ramon. And I want to see what the next match is. Tatanka and Kama, who are managed by the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, went against Savio Vega and Bob Sparky Plug Holly. But first, gotta look for that Nitro episode so that I can get to this episode of September 18th, 1995. And I don't know why, but when I go to play shows like that, I guess because it's a brand new episode I'm playing, and I didn't play right away, they decided to air a tap out commercial, or a tap out merchandise commercial with all the superstars. So that's why I can't say right away what happened in the second match. I believe this was the first night that Nitro lost. No, that Nitro won the ratings. And the second match, Johnny B. Bad lost to Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. And Paul Orndorff countered Sunset Flip, and he not only did he pin Johnny B. Bad, but he held onto the ropes, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no. No, somehow he won without cheating. Okay. That was good. The third match of that night was Flying Brian against Ric Flair. Of course, it was in response to what he did in the main event the night before. So Kama and Tatanka think they beat Sparky Plug Holly when Kama countered maneuver I think he caught Sparky Plug in midair, and that's how they won the match. Yeah, he caught him in midair when Bob Sparky Plug went for a crossbody. He just he caught him almost like a power slam and hooked the leg for a 3 count. Next match was Jean-Pierre Lafitte versus Brian Walsh. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was the guy we know today as PCO in MLW. And then Jean-Pierre Lafitte beat Brian Walsh with Senton. She actually did that better than Jeff Hardy did, in my estimation. And then, while Men on a Mission challenged Yokozuna and Owen Hart for the tag team titles. Ric Flair was going against Brian Pillman. So that could be another reason that Nitro won the ratings, was because nothing against Owen Hart and Yokozuna, or even Men on a Mission, but I just preferred, I would have just preferred myself as a fan watching Pillman go against Ric Flair. Owen Hart won. Owen Hart and Yokozuna were kept the tag team titles with a drop toe hold leg drop combination. This time on King Sir Mo. 2, 3. So that solidified the main event for In Your House pay-per-view. And I believe Brian Pillman got himself disqualified. So let's look at it, make sure. Hit him with like a knee breaker, did Ric Flair, and I think he won with the slaps on the figure 4 leg lock to win against Brian Pillman. Yeah, that was the last match of the show. People that may be wondering what my plans are for a pay-per-view show. Well, my plans are to only talk about the WCW and WWF pay-per-views when I'm doing the Raw vs. Nitro episodes. My plan is to be chronological with my regular pay-per-view show. And I had to read the closed captioning to know what else happened in Nitro. Well, this is what happened. Ric Flair got on the microphone and called out Arn Anderson. Went to commercial, came back. Luckily, Ric Flair was out of the ring, and they were talking about, Bischoff was talking about hopefully getting an update from Hulk Hogan about his neck next week. Then him asking Steve McMichael about anybody and everybody wanting a shot at the world title. He was asking what he thinks about the situation with the Giant and Hulk Hogan, and that's what Steve McMichael said. He said, "What are you gonna do if Hulk don't get up?" And he said, and Eric said, "We're gonna find out." He reminded everybody about Saturday night. Then he asked Bobby Heenan what he thought. He brought up Ric Flair, and he said, Rick, you may have given out your last woo because Arn Anderson is looking for you. And he said, he means business. And he said, next Saturday night, we're going to try to check in with Commissioner Nick Bockwinkel, find out where all tag team title situation that transpired here tonight is going to stand. And then it said, we'll see you next week. And they went to show what's happening next week. First match they plug is Alex Wright versus Disco Inferno for next week's Monday Nitro. Colonel Parker's newest acquisition, Kurosawa, being in action. Randy Savage going against Kevin Sullivan. Lex Luger going against Ming. And that's it for Monday Nitro. Okay, now we'll go back to WWF from September 18th. After the Tag Team Champions keep the titles to solidify, like I said before, who the champions going into the main event in your house are going to be. They show in the back Diesel and Shawn Michaels cutting a promo about their, about In Your House. Oh, it's gonna be, okay, so my next episode is gonna be about In Your House and what happened the night after in WWF versus WCW. That's gonna be interesting. Shawn Michaels had said in this promo how Jim Cornette, like Pinocchio, his nose is getting bigger because of the lies he's been saying. Come In Your House, they would be tag team champions and heavyweight and intercontinental champion. And that happened to have been in Detroit, Michigan, so Diesel said Big Daddy Cool's coming home. Please bring a very special guest, the one and only Heartbreak Kid himself, my best buddy. Face is the place to give Big John a call, because when it's all said and done, we're coming home with all the hardware. And in those days, we used to always say two dudes with attitudes, and that's what they called Shawn Michaels and Diesel. Then Vince McMahon interviewed Cornette, when Hart Yokozuna about the pay-per-view. See what he has to say. Jerry Lawler was so mean, he said maybe McMahon will get to be slammed right here. He was saying how it was history of the making. He was pointing out the possibility of them losing the titles. And he said, he basically, in this entire promo / interview, he said that two dudes with attitudes because of their history with each other, they can't trust each other. That's what he's banking on, along with all the other secret plans he had. It's made it even more exciting and interesting to see the pay-per-view. He said he wants to ask them a question. He said last time they were partners, they broke up. And they had to fight like a couple of divorcees. He said he brought up the old-fashioned question of, is he going to be greedy, or are you going to listen, to what your good conscience says? He said he thinks he's going to pick protecting the title instead, not realizing, of course, that at Diesel's size he can do both. And he said he asked if Shawn Michaels can put his ego on the side to save Diesel, or if he could, or choose his belt. What's he gonna choose? He asked if they could look in the mirror and say that they trust each other and really think they're friends this time, because they are a unit. And that's one thing to be great individual singles wrestlers, but it's another thing to be a great team. And that's why he believes his team's going to walk out with all the gold. They have that unique ability to work together. However, the only way that would work to have all the titles would be for both of them to pin Michaels and Diesel at the same time. That's the best part of this kind of match. If you're gonna have the tag team champions, if one half's gonna win the mid card, and if the other half's gonna win the top title, the best part is that they could pin both champions at the same time. Same thing with the Intercontinental and Heavyweight Champion. That's why I can't wait to talk about this, even if it's just to look at the finishes on the network app in the future. Alright, thank you. That's all I have to talk about, and goodbye.